Hello and welcome to this, the 30th episode of the Sockmatician podcast. My name is Nathan Taylor, also known as Sockmatician on Ravelry, Instagram, Twitter, and right here on YouTube, and also now on Periscope. I hope you're well. I hope you've had a fantastic time. I am really enjoying the fact that this is episode number 30. I have been... Do you know what? The roundup on this one's going to be quite quick, and the reason for that is, A, I've not been doing quite as much stuff as I normally do, and B, because I kind of want to get cracking with the knitting content. I've got quite a lot of things to show you today, and some of them I'd like to talk about in some depth, so please, I hope you'll indulge me. How the devil are you? I am trying something a little bit new with my setup this time. Usually I film myself looking straight at the front lens on my phone, and I've turned it round and I've got it piped into my computer, so I'm seeing myself on the screen, but I wanted to try using the back lens on my phone because I thought it might be better quality. It may not, and it may lead to all sorts of moments of me doing this, thinking I'm talking at you when actually I'm not. But I hope you'll understand. It's also got a little bit of a time lag on it, which is a little bit weird and disconcerting. So out of the corner of my eye, I can see myself reversed and doing things half a second after I've actually done them. So if that puts me off my thread and stops me from concentrating this week, I apologise. So today is it's Friday the 16th of September. Last night we had a terrific thunderstorm. Actually last night, it was a very long night for me. I was at work yesterday, and usually I finish work at 8 o'clock, but I finished at 6 yesterday. I'm very glad I did. It was about 10 to 6, and I was looking at the computer screen at work, and I suddenly realised that I couldn't see part of it. The bit that I was looking at, there was an area on the screen just here where I couldn't see the words, and it's a little disconcerting. It was kind of like... It wasn't that there was a blackness there, it was like there was just it wasn't blurred, it was like there was just no information reaching me from that part of my vision. Kind of like, well, I don't know how to describe it really. It was a bit weird, and my boss was a little bit concerned when I mentioned it, and she said I was going home anyway, I was just packing up to leave, and she said I should get it checked out. Well, I went to buy some things on the way home, and it got worse and worse. It wasn't just this little blob, it was kind of like this whole circle in the middle of my vision, and it was really odd. I was looking at people's faces and I couldn't see their mouths, and I was starting to get a little bit dizzy, and I really thought that something serious might be going on. It turns out, and I did recognise it, but it's been a long time since this has happened to me, it was the auras at the beginning of a migraine. And in the past, when I've had this kind of problem, I've had 2 hours from the onset of the migraine, the onset of the vision problems, before the pain hits. And there are times when I'd be at school and my vision would go, and I would write, I've got to go home. And say, well, it's not 3 o'clock yet. I was like, no, I'm going home. And I knew I had to get back into my house so I could lie flat. And traditionally, those kind of migraines always ended up with me vomiting and sleeping a lot. Thankfully last night there was none of that. However, 8 o'clock, bang on schedule, 2 hours after the vision went a bit wrong. Thankfully the aura doesn't last very long, it was about an hour, and then I wait for the pain to come. By 8 o'clock last night I thought, you know what, I'm going to bed, it hurts. So I went to bed, and I was asleep within about half an hour, thankfully, and I'd taken massive doses of painkillers, and I'd say I slept through. I got up this morning at about 10 o'clock, so I've had about 14 hours in bed, which makes me sound very lazy, but I was a bit wiped out, and I didn't really sleep that long. Ben came home from doing hosting a quiz last night, and he got home about 11:30. I disturbed a bit then. But then, about 4 in the morning, there was an almighty thunderstorm right over our heads. There's been flooding in London and all sorts of things today as a result. I think there's problems on the roads around just outside London as well. And there was one colossal explosion of thunder which woke Ben up in a panic. Thankfully my migraine had gone by that point, so I was able to get up and deal with things. The rain was throwing it down. We had our window wide open because it had been really, really hot these last few days, like really super hot, 30 degrees hot, and which for this country and this time of year is unheard of. And Ben was in a as he woke up, and I was sort of placating him, and then you'll remember that our ceiling floods, so we were running around trying to make sure that we got up and turned the lights on, and we put we've got a picnic blanket which has a plastic back on it, so it's waterproof, so we put that on the living room carpet with some towels on top just in case the ceiling were to come down again. Thankfully it didn't. We also have a little leak in the loft through one of the windows up there. It's not very well sealed, so we had water coming there, so we had to put a bowl up. All that kind of stuff at 4 o'clock this morning. Very boring stuff. Since I last spoke to you, I don't know if you remember, we were talking about the Pepys Motet for the launch of Ben's CD, the Pepys Motet, which is available from his shop, just here. And it's also available to download from iTunes. Certainly if you're in the UK, I don't know if the US will be able to get it from the iTunes store. If anyone watching in the US or elsewhere, perhaps outside UK but maybe in Europe or even in Australia, wants to give it a go, it's called the Pepys Motet by Benjamin Till. And could you let me know if it's available, if you can purchase it from iTunes in your territory? It'd be really useful. I'm not suggesting that you should, unless of course you want to, in which case you are more than welcome to do so. But if you can sort of give it a go to see if it will, and then if you don't want to buy it, then don't. But just let me know if it's available, because I'd be fascinated to know where we can get it from. Yes, because of that, you'll remember I was talking about the Great Fire of London, because the beginning of September was the 350th anniversary of the Great Fire of London, which features heavily in the Pepys diaries. See, it's backwards. Copies of which are, I can't do this anymore, are right here on the screen. And that's really, really bad. Podcaster 101. Normally, my phone gives me the mirror image. This time it's really not, so I'm pointing the wrong way to go. It's very, very odd indeed. Sorry about the noises, my computer's making some bleeps and whistles in the background. I was talking about the Pepys Motet. Ben and I and our friend Abby went to watch the burning of a 400-foot replica of medieval London. I say medieval, 17th century London. And it was down on the Thames, and it was on the Sunday, so I think it was the 4th of September by then. Yeah, that would make sense. Yes, the 4th. And it was really, really exciting. The replica was all wood, and it was all the lattice framework without any of the walls of all the buildings. And there was the old St Paul's, not the domed one by Christopher Wren that we know and love now. That, of course, was only built because of the Great Fire, having destroyed the original St Paul's, which was huge. That was there in replica in various churches and stuff. But it's on this barge floating on the Thames. It's about 400 feet long, and it was really, I didn't know what to expect. It was very, very exciting. It would start off. We waited there for about 2 hours beforehand because we knew it was going to get really, really busy. We had a prime location just in front of it, and it started without any ceremony. At 8:30 in the evening, just it started to get dark. They just started lighting it, but all done automatically. There was no one going around with a candle or anything, or a spill. There, in one of the houses, there's just suddenly a little burst of flame, and then it stayed alight. And then in the next house, another these little bursts of gorgeous, beautiful flame, and it was really, really exciting. I've put details on my Instagram feed, and people have seen it, but for those of you who haven't, this side, I should know this. I'll put up little bits of footage and stuff. It was fascinating and really beautiful, and whoever had designed it had made the right choice not to put the walls into the houses, because once the houses were alight from the inside, you saw the framework all silhouetted. It was really, really beautiful, very loud, very hot, and we must have been 100 feet away from it, and at its peak it was really sort of right in our faces. Lovely, really, really fun. And then before that, earlier in the day, we had been up to the Hitchin lavender farm. Hitchin, which is not very far away from where Katie Novelli lives, from inside number 23. And I was thinking about her, and wouldn't it have been fun if we could meet? I don't think she was at home. Anyway, next time, Katie, next year, we'll go lavender picking. Date. Oh, well, I've decided it's a date. I think you probably have some say in that as well. But we went up there. There was me and Abby and Ben, the three of us who went on to go to the burning later on that evening, and our friends Julie and Tina. And the five of us went up there, and we spent a lovely couple of hours. You get given a bag and some scissors when you arrive, and you just go up and down these long lines of lavender plants, picking them. There's some white lavender as well, which I've not seen before, which smells a little bit different from the purple lavender. I don't know if it was my imagination or not, but it seemed like it was a bit more citrusy. I liked it, really, really pretty. They also had a big patch of sunflowers there, which was great, and some wag. They were all going over. It was the end of the season. In fact, it was the last day they were opening. So they'd said normally, I think you could cut yourself a sunflower head for £2. Was it £2? And I did it again. I started recording without deleting last time's episode and ran out of space. So anyway, some wag had gone along into the sunflower patch and had taken away some of the seeds on one of the heads, and we saw this lovely scene greeting us as we walked through. It felt a little bit Wizard of Oz-like, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed it. And I put the lavender in my beard, which some of you may have seen on Instagram. It's oddly, doesn't matter, all the knitting things that I put out there, all the content I try and create for you all, me with some lavender stalks in my beard has become my most liked picture ever on Instagram with over 1,000 likes. So it just made me laugh. It really, really made me laugh that was what tickled people. That's sort of it, really. Last weekend, Ben and I went, again, our friend Abby, we're seeing a lot of Abby at the moment, which is great. Abby, who, of course, you remember from sitting right here on the sofa a few episodes ago, is a keen knitter herself. And she's also a great singer. And she was singing at a garden party in London. Her mother is one of the wardens of Filbeach Gardens, where Abby grew up. And it's this beautiful enclosed garden space. It's a Filbeach Crescent. It's obviously a crescent shape, and in that D between the houses is a private garden, and all of the residents have a key to it, but it's locked to the general public. And it's really, really lovely. It's a very special place, and we'd never been before, and we were invited as Abby's guests because she was singing to a little jazz trio and did some standards. It was really just lovely. It was kind of the last few days of summer, we thought, although this week has been bakingly hot as well. So that kind of takes us up to date. I haven't really been doing a great deal of other things. No, nothing to report. So let's plough on with some community stuff. Oh, before I go anywhere else, I was catching up with John Glenn, Beardy Cheel's third episode. And John, I'm so sorry to hear about your health woes. For those of you who, I don't want to be a scaremonger, but John has had some health issues that he's working through, and if you want to find out more about it, it's for him to tell you, not me, so head along to episode 3 of Beardy Cheel's podcast. But John, it sounds like you've been proper poorly. I'm sending you all the very, very best. However, enforced recuperation is enforced knitting time, as you have so rightly discovered, and ain't nothing wrong with that. I mean, for better reasons, would be much more fun, but the outcome's the same. And you've been busy. For those of you who don't know, John is also a really fabulous, innovative knitting designer. He sort of just gives stuff a go. And his latest shawl, the forest floor of the forest, I'll put it here, is really, really something special. I like it a lot. So well done, John. And here's hoping that your recuperation is a lot more swift. I think it might be. You sound like a man with a mission. That mission being to get well. Who else would I like to give a shout out to? Well, obviously, as I always do, I think there's some podcasts that I've been watching recently. There's clearly Dan and Kay of the Bakery Bears. I know you all watch them anyway, so there's no point me mentioning that. But hello Dan, hello Kay. I had a message from Dan yesterday. He was saying that he and Kay have been out to York, having a day away with just the two of them because Bryony, their daughter, is away. And they were on the train on the way back, and they were both knitting, which is brilliant. Dan, I'm so glad that because I remember before you used to be a little bit unsure of knitting in public, but now I'm so glad that you don't mind at all. And apparently he and Kay were discussing soft furnishings, and the lady opposite, in his words, must have thought that he was Kay's gay best friend. Well, Dan, what a compliment is all I can say to that. It did make me laugh. Also, big shout out to who else have I been watching recently? Obviously Katie at number 23, if you're looking for a really, really lovely, warm-hearted podcast. Katie is brilliantly lively and funny, and she's just really, really good at lots of different things. I'm in awe of her sewing skills. It's mostly a knitting podcast, if you don't know, but it's also a sewing podcast as well. She's very, very keen seamstress, and makes a lot of her own clothes brilliantly well. However, I have a new podcast to mention today, and it's David Dogdare from the Dogdare podcast, who is David Dogdare on Ravelry. I think I've got all that right. You'll find him. Really, really fun. I can't quite remember how I was alerted to you, David. I think you watched this one. I know you're a member of the Ravelry group, so you may do. If so, hello and welcome to the podcasting world. David is quite new to podcasting. I think there's 4 or 5 episodes up on his channel so far, and really, really fun. I've enjoyed very much getting to know you via the medium of podcast watching, of course. We don't know each other at all, but I hope to get in touch with you sometime soon and strike up a very meaningful virtual relationship. I'm sure that's what happens, isn't it? That's what happens on the internet. It all means so much. But no, genuinely, I'd like to get in touch and get to know you because I've enjoyed watching your podcast very much indeed. David has a lovely macabre, gothic, quirky love of things macabre, gothic and quirky, and it's really, really fun getting to see how that all gets to put together. I have to say, the very short episode where he announces the winner of one of his recent giveaways really made me jump. I was at home alone late at night. Ben was out working, and well, I'm not going to give it away, but it was very, very spookily put together and made my heart race a little bit at a certain point. So David, thank you for that. And that's all I've had time for, really. I haven't been watching anybody else. Oh, Tilly's back. Hello, Tilly. Lovely to see your podcast again. And your co-hosted podcast was a lot of fun. I look forward to many more from you soon. And obviously there's Josh. Lovely Josh Brown, who is Auricular82, who I adore. Podcasting a little bit intermittently, but always worth a watch. Josh, you're charming and adorable. You know I love you. So there we are. That's a little bit of community stuff. Let's head on into rubbish all over the screen of my iPad. Sorry about that. It's just dust. Oh, I've updated to iOS 10 on my iPad and on my phone. I don't really know how any of it works yet. So I have got podcast questions to answer. Thank you very much for leaving some podcast questions in the thread on Ravelry. If you do want to know anything about me at all, or anything about the knitting that I do, or the singing, or the performing life I have, then please do pop over to the Ravelry group and leave a question in the dedicated podcast questions thread. I've got one here from, I don't know your name, Judah Star Wolf. Let me just check to see if you've got a name on your on your profile. No, first name, Judah Star Wolf. But you're from North Dakota, and I'm very glad to know you. Oh, Jude. She says, hello, I'm Jude. Hello, Jude. I absolutely love your podcast, thank you very much, particularly your love for musical theatre, which leads me to my question. What is your favourite song from any musical, and how would you describe it in a yarn colourway? How would you picture it visually? Jude, that's an impossible question. Genuinely impossible, and I have thought about this. It's not just reading it off the page and trying to do it off the top of my head. I thought this is one that needs some thought. Well, I am unable to give you an answer. Favourite song from musical theatre? I mean, that's like asking me my favourite ABBA song. It's just there just isn't one. They're all so many good ones. I could list hundreds of songs that I love, and as for how to interpret them in a musical, in a colourway way, but because I don't want you to be disappointed that I have an answer, I cannot come up with an answer for you. But because I don't want you to be disappointed, I'm going to open a thread on my Ravelry group. And it is going to be that question. And I want everybody watching this to head over there and come up with their own answers to that question, to perhaps give me some kind of inspiration, and maybe I'll be able to think of something to answer next time. So it'll be musical theatre songs thread. You'll find it. I'll find a better name for it than that, but you'll find it. So head over there and answer that question, which I'll put on the text. But it is, what's your favourite song from a musical? Please make it a musical theatre song to keep it in keeping with Jude's original question. How would you describe it in a yarn colourway? How would you picture it visually? Very well put together question, and I'm really, really sorry, Jude. I just can't answer it. Then I've got, this question keeps coming up. A lot of people on Instagram have asked it. I have answered the same question before, but I don't mind answering it again because I know that not everybody watches everything that someone puts out there. Why should they? And it's regarding this. This is the throw that adorns my sofa whenever I'm doing these podcasts. People are asking what it is, and this latest one has come from Schattenkerk, which is, says, I did a cursory glance around, so if I missed this question already being asked, please excuse me. You don't need excusing, it has been answered, but that's absolutely not a problem. The blanket in the background of your podcast is exactly what I've been looking for to make for my grandmother. Is there a pattern somewhere? Well, yes, there is. It's not mine, it's Stephen West's Brick Street pattern. For the life of me, I can't remember anything about the pattern. It was so long ago that I knitted it. I knitted this one in it's Freedom yarn by Twillies, and it's kind of like it's a big puffy singlet. It's hardly plied at all. It's almost like knitting with roving. Very splitty, very fuzzy, really warm, not hugely soft, a little bit scratchy, but it's a really lovely texture. I like it. And this is an olive green, and I use black around the border. It's a very simple pattern. I'm not going to give anything away here. I think it's in the West Knits 1 book, or it might be in his second book. But check it out on Ravelry and you'll find it. Brick Street by Stephen West. My dear friend, Stephen West. I call him my dear friend. I haven't seen him for a few months, but we went away on holiday together a few years ago. That's how we got to know each other. In Italy, of all places. Now, the other question relates back to... I was going to show you, wasn't I? The picture that I had of my lavender beard. There you go. That's sort of... See, I still can't. That's me with my lavender beard. So stupid, so stupid. But it was kind of fun. It's got, what was it, like 1,008 likes or something like that. Yeah, there you go, 1,008 likes. And there I was at Hitchin Lavender Farm when I took that photograph, and Karen, who is Spook1 on Ravelry, has asked, she's saying she's a recent convert to knitting podcasts, and it's opening her eyes to a whole new world of knitting. Well, that's brilliant, and I think that's why most knitters do a podcast. I think it's to share the kind of the knowledge that we have. This is why I love teaching and why I love doing this podcast, as a way reaching out and engaging with people. It's not just on a one-to-one on a personal level, it's all about sharing the knowledge I have. I've never known anybody like knitters for wanting to share, not to keep hold of stuff and say, oh, I know this and now I could do this and no one else can. It's like, oh, look what I found, why don't I share it with you? Well, my question to you has been prompted by your Instagram pic of all the lavender in your beard. You said you were picking lavender to put with your yarn stash, but how do you prepare the lavender? Do you dry it first or just put it in freshly cut? Do you place it in bunches or randomly strewn about in your boxes? Cut off the flowers and split it up? I know it may be quite a simple thing, but I've not thought of putting lavender in with the yarn to keep away the bugs, and I just love the idea of getting bursts of lavender when opening my stash. Who doesn't? So, in answer to your question, how I prepared this batch of lavender was to leave it in a bag till it goes mouldy and then put it straight in the bin. True story. It sweated, and within 2 days it had got, and it became this sort of brown, brackish, watery mulch. I wasn't best pleased. Probably 0.5 kilogram or more of lavender. It's a real shame. What I should have done is taken it out to dry. And what I was planning to do is take all the buds and flowers off the seed pods off the stems, throw away the stems and put them in little sachets to put in the drawers where I keep my knitted stuff. That was the plan. You can always refresh that with bits of lavender oil if the smell disappears. That didn't happen. So sorry, the answer to your question is I don't know the best thing. I'm sure there are lots of people who can. If you head over to General Chatter, Karen, on my Ravelry group and post the question there, then I'm sure lots of people will answer you who are so much better at this stuff than I am. So much better. Crikey. I'd say what a waste. We had a lovely time. There was nothing about the day that was wasted, just the end product. So there we are. That's the questions. I want to head straight into what I've been doing. Oh, do you know what? Before we do that, it's kind of part and parcel of what I've been doing. I want to jump about on this one because some of the things that are in the roundup really relate to what's a whip or an FO, and I haven't planned this very well, have I? You know me better than that by now. I'm just going to jump straight in. One of the things that I was talking about last time and really, really keen to make happen now is my stranded knit along. Now, I know Katie is in conjunction with, I forget the name of the other podcaster, and they are also doing a stranded knit along or a colorwork knit along in Katie's case, throughout October. Now, I didn't know that when I first said this, and I want to carry on anyway, so I'm very happy for people to double dip. I don't know that Katie will be, so check with her for her rules, but if you're planning to enter something in her colourwork cal, and you also want to enter it in mine and Maggie's, then please do so as far as I'm concerned. Maggie, of course, is Knit by Maggie from Ravelry, who is going to be co-hosting the cal with me. Now, I foolishly last time I said, "Oh, I've looked at your projects, Maggie, and you do such lovely stranded work." I must have been looking at somebody else's. She doesn't have a great deal of stranded stuff on her projects at all, and she said, "Are you sure you mean me?" I don't know how. I definitely clicked on somebody's page. Thought, "Oh, what a lot of lovely stranded work," and it clearly wasn't Maggie's profile because that's not what she displays. However, she's very happy and very excited to do this cal with me. So, Maggie, this is for you. I've told you this anyway, but just to reiterate, I'm going to give you co-moderator status for this cal, and I'm going to be putting up a thread. It's not going to start until the 1st of October, so don't cast anything on yet. Please wait until October, but by all means, and I might open up a prep thread as well, by all means start thinking about what you want to make, finding patterns, sourcing yarn, getting needles together, all that kind of stuff. I think that'll be really, really useful so that we can use the month of October as appropriately and as efficiently as possible for knitting. Come on. Now this is a stranded work cal specifically, so it's not going to include any double knitting, and not for intarsia either, or any other type, but Fair Isle and other types of stranded knitting will be absolutely welcome in the cal, and I can't wait to see what people are getting on with. I, of course, have wanted 2016 to be my year of stranded work, and I've done precious little of it, apart from this cowl, about which more in a moment. It's quite a large cowl, there's quite a lot of stranded knitting going on in that, so I don't feel too bad about it, but it is just the one project. So I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing the Latvian mitten kit that I brought back from Riga, and it's where I met up with Melody, do you remember? Bee Mandarins from Instagram, and I am going to be knitting that as my challenge to myself, and some of the rows have got 4 colours in them, so it's going to be quite scary for this not very talented stranded knitter. So Maggie and I are going to be hosting that together. We'll be popping in and out of that thread, all the various threads that come up. There'll be probably a prep thread, a whips thread for the cal itself, and an FOs thread for when people get finished. You can enter as many times as you like. The only rules are please be a member of the group, and other than that, anything goes as long as your work is stranded and hasn't been cast on before the 1st of October 2016. It can be something small, it can be a Christmas bauble or anything like that, or it can be something massive, down to like a floor length coat. If you think you can knit a stranded floor length coat in a month, good luck with that! I may or may not, depending on how things go and how the mood of the group is, Maggie and I might decide to extend the cal into November. I don't want it to clash with I'm sure people will be doing lots of Christmas present cals and things like that, so I don't really want to eat into that time. I may in fact do something like that myself, but I think it's important to make sure that people don't panic about knitting, because knitting is not to be panicked about. It is, after all, what we do for fun, isn't it? With that in mind, this pattern is in the process of being written up. I have now named it. It is called the Paganino, and it's really interesting. I've said this before, but I got the pattern from an archive book of 16th century needlework and embroidery charts, and I just fell in love with it. So I mean, literally from like 1527 or something like that. These charts are damn old. These patterns go back some, and I really, really like it. Now the book was created, collected and published by a man called Alessandro Paganino, which is interesting because he's listed on the web as Alessandro Paganini, and of course Paganini is a much more familiar word to people, but on the front cover of the book it's printed as Paganino. So that's why I'm calling this Paganino, in honour of him and in thanks to him for collecting those things so many hundreds of years ago that I can still work from in the 21st century and create something so lovely. So I've barely started, I only began today writing this up, and I took no notes when I was doing this, so I'm having to reverse engineer everything I did. But just to recap, on here, I'll come forward and hopefully it will focus on the knitting rather than on my ugly mug. Yes, it does. We cast on. We will work some corrugated rib, and now I used a gradient pack from John Dunballum of Easy Knits, and gradient spelled G-R-E-Y, dient. Clever, huh? So there's 5 different colours of grey, and so in the corrugated rib, I'm going to focus. Yeah, that's more like it. On the corrugated rib, you can see I've got one round of each of the 5 colours, working dark, lighter, 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 lightest. And after that, I worked a couple of rows of just the plain purple. Come on, focus on the good stuff. And then there's this absolutely lovely Vickle braid working its way along here, which is this line of horizontal stitches, which I just think is a really, really gorgeous feature. Now, this ain't the tidiest piece of knitting you'll ever have seen. I mean, it really isn't. Just checking on in focus. That's why my eyes keep flicking. But, so, you know, the edging flares, it's a little bit wiggly. It's a work in progress. I don't, you know, I'm not averse to that. I'm quite happy to show you the inside of my stranded knitting. That's not too bad. No puckering going on. I'm quite happy with that. It blocks really well. So then you get into the pattern itself, and the pattern has been split up. So we start with the darkest of the colours, and we work our way through to the lightest in the centre, and then we work back to the darkest colour, and then basically just reverse everything at the other end. So at the bottom there's another Vickle braid, and then more corrugated ribbing, but starting from the lightest and going to the darkest, whereas up here we started from the darkest and went through to the lightest. And then a cast off. So it's really straightforward. And it shouldn't take me too long to write it up. So I'm going to be releasing that to coincide with the start of the stranded knit along, or the strand along. I might call it a strand along. The SAL. How nice. And what happened there? I have no idea why that just happened. However, of course, I don't expect people to buy this just so they can be involved in the CAL, or the SAL. If you would like to, of course, you're more than welcome to do so, and I want to make it available for anyone who would like to make this. It would be quite fun, I think, for people to be working on, or for some people to be working on the same project, so that we can all help each other out. I won't be knitting it again, but obviously I can help out people with it. So I will be offering this at quite a hefty discounted rate for people who are involved in the CAL. But you don't have to knit this. Anything at all, as I say, baubles or gowns, anything you like, anything that has stranded work specifically in it, in at least 2 colours. Which means you can do as many as you like. Fair Isle, brilliant, bring it on. So that's going to be worked on over the next couple of weeks, and I will get it released in time. I might sort of do a soft release, actually. I might put it up in a format that I wouldn't necessarily want to release a pattern in, so maybe I won't have the photographs done, or maybe it won't be quite as beautifully laid out as I try to make my patterns most of the time, but I will get it done, so it will be there. And then, of course, in time, I'll make it look gorgeous, update it, and you can download your updates free of charge. So that is the strand along, and that is me and Maggie working together as co-moderators on that one. The thing is, I want to wear this. I really do. It hasn't been cold enough at all. In fact, it's been quite the opposite. It's been incredibly hot this last few days, but I really do want to wear it. I like it enormously, and I love the colours. I don't even mind the fact that it wants to sort of show its rear side to you. Oh, we're getting onto the baggy backside again. I do apologise. Sorry, Steph. So there's that. Lovely. Done. I've also been quite busy getting the Dan the Plug-All hat pattern ready for release. A lot of people showed quite a lot of interest in this when I first knit it back in March. I was knitting this when I was up at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. Where is it? Got it here somewhere. Here it is. So this is, for those of you who may not focus, there you go, that's me doing some gardening at a friend's allotment, wearing the hat itself, and then I've got some more photographs of it there. Look at me all let's try and get that in focus. There you go. all wistful, staring off into the distance. But it's got this gorgeous spiral on the back. There's a photograph of Ben wearing it here, which shows that off really well. And it's a lot of fun to knit. I've been working quite hard on setting that up. It's called Dan the Plughole because it's got that swirly spiral on it, like water swirling down a plug hole, Dan the Plughole. But it's named after Dan Jones of Bakery Bears fame because the first prototype was knit in the same yarn that Aloysius's jumper was knit with. This really bright acrylic that Dan sent me as a forfeit to knit something with. So I did, I knitted him that hat and I gave it to him back. Dan, I don't think I've seen you wearing it. I thought part of the deal was that you'd wear that out in public and take some photographs of yourself wearing it. And yes, it is slouchy, and yes, I'm sure you love it. So, that's why it's called Down the Plughole. As of last time, it was with Michelle Hazel, who is my tech editor extraordinaire. Hi, Michelle. And I was just waiting for that to come back to me with her input and advice. As usual, she was brilliant. I think she uses, I think she's a bit unlike most tech editors. I think what she actually uses is witchcraft. Because there's charts in this. Don't be frightened, Kay particularly, don't be put off. There's charts in this, and I agonised over these charts and I knitted the hat twice to make sure I got everything exactly right. And because it spirals, the beginning of the row has to shift, otherwise you're doing decreases over the start of the round, and it gets quite tricky. So in order to make it not tricky, I shift the start of the round, and it's a very, very simple knit, but it was a really difficult concept to try and pin down onto the page. And I agonised and struggled with it, and finally I got a way of doing it, and I sent it off to Michelle, and she came back and she said, oh, around 50 whatever, there's a stitch here which I think should be a no stitch. It's got, I was like, how can you possibly know that? You haven't knit it, how can you know that? It's been a while since I'd looked at those charts, and I couldn't get my head back into that space, so I thought the only thing to do is to cast on. These are the crown decreases, but I thought, well, I'll cast on that section, which is about halfway through the decreases, and knit the few rows leading up to the row in question, and lo and behold, she was of course absolutely right. And there was an extra stitch where there shouldn't be, and she'd isolated exactly which stitch it needs to be. I don't know how you do it. But I'm very glad she does. She also made some really, really insightful suggestions, one of which was I hadn't put any written instructions apart to go with the charts. Now, she and I have been talking about this via email. I am of the mind that there's nothing difficult about charts, and that they are in fact simpler because you can see at a glance what something is supposed to look like. And I know there are people out there who completely disagree with me, and people who are dyed-in-the-wool written instruction users and absolutely hate using charts. Kay, you've said yourself that you don't like using charts. I felt I should probably cater to people who don't like using charts, although part of me, the stubborn part of me, wants to say, well, if you want to knit the hat, you'll enjoy working from the charts because they're easy. But I know that's not necessarily how it is, and I'm sure I'll get don't write in. I know that's going to be offending people. It's not meant to be offensive to anybody. It's my brain works in a certain way, and of course I can't envisage a brain not working in the same way that mine does, and I work very visually. So I like to be able to see and imagine and picture exactly how everything's going to stack up on top of itself. When I'm looking at a list of written instructions, you constantly have to find your place in the line, and you can't check to read the knitting to see if things stack up on top of each other the way they should. Particularly if you're doing lace or something like that, you know there's perhaps this yarn over shouldn't be on top of this stitch, or perhaps it should. Well, on a chart you can see that immediately, but if you've got different stitch counts and things going, when it's written instructions, I think, well, how can you see that? And in order to be able to own it, I need to be able to see it. That said, I ummed and ahed, and I came to the conclusion that Michelle was right. Again, right. And so I have revamped the pattern, and now it's got two versions. So it's got one set of instructions for following the charts, which come at the end of the rest of the pattern, and it's got one set of instructions which is written out in full, where you don't need to use a chart at all. So I'm very pleased with it. I've sent it back to Michelle to check, just to make sure everything was okay. She found a couple more things, spelling mistakes, and I'd copied one line twice and all that kind of nonsense. And it's now finished. As of recording, it is not yet up on Ravelry. I'm hoping to be able to do that this evening. So by the time this uploads, by the time you're watching this, you will be able to go and download your copy of Dan the Plug Old. It's a very simple hat. It's lots of fun. My nephew loves his. Dan, I hope you love yours. And I know you will love yours when you knit yours yourself. That's to everyone, that's not just Dan. But Dan, you might want to knit one. Now that you're so brilliant with your speargrass hats and your lace, and nothing's stopping you now, I tell you. So, moving on, I'm going to go, unusually, because I'm talking about patterns at the moment, I'm going to go straight into FOs, because I do have an FO. Something I should have talked about first, but I do have an FO. Last time, I started knitting a hat, and it was a plain stocking stitch hat, and it had a tubular cast on and a ribbed cuff, and I was about halfway through it. Well, I finished it very quickly, and I was so pleased with it I decided to write the pattern up. It's called the Invisicrown, and the reason it's called the Invisicrown, here it is because unlike most knitted beanies, it doesn't have spiralling lines of decreases. And the reason I did that is because this yarn, which is the pewter colourway from Casbar, Handmade and Fine Yarns, the Casbar base, which I love, it's one of my favourite yarns. It's got some cashmere in it. It's so beautifully striped. What I didn't want to do was interrupt those stripes. Let me try and get this in the centre for you with any swirling diagonal lines of decreases. So actually, what I've done is I've tried to space out the decreases as evenly as possible, so you don't, in fact, get any harsh lines. Focus, there you go. So it really, really shows off a variegated or a striped yarn like this, because the lines just spiral round and round and round into the hat. It's this one was deliberately knit at a very loose gauge, very open stitches, and very, very slouchy, quite deliberately, so that there's a lot of give in it. You can sort of, it feels so nice on my head. It really does. So it's I can't style that when I'm all backwards in the mirror, but that's the hat. That's how it looks. The pattern is written in such a way that you can customize it to your own stitch count, and it's not quite a recipe like my Sockmatician's toe-ups is, but you can just pick up the crown decreases from whatever round suits your stitch count. So if you want a more snugly fitting hat, if you want a longer cuff so you can fold it up more, if you want less of a cuff, if you want a less slouch in it, all of those things are doable. If you've ever knit any kind of hat before, then you'll be able to customize at will, or you just do it until you feel like doing the next bit. It's just lovely, I have to say. I do absolutely adore it, and I think it's the perfect hat for, gosh, it doesn't quite cover my beard, but I think it's lovely, and I'm really, really pleased with it, and you can probably see quite well there. I don't know if that's even on screen, but I thought I'd show it to you with all the crown decreases showing like that. I'll get to see that in the edit, I guess. Very, very happy with this. So it is, it's available for free on Ravelry. It's been a long time since I've released a free pattern. I didn't think it warranted paying for, because it is such a simple thing. It starts with a tubular cast on, as I said last time, which is great. And I've also recorded a brand new video tutorial on how to do the 2x2 tutorial for the 2x2 tubular cast. Tubular cast on for 2x2 ribbing. That's what I wanted to say. And I am very, very happy with how this turned out. I wore this for a couple of days when it got a little bit cooler, and even though it wasn't really hat-wearing weather, it feels so light and so drapey that it was just a joy. I didn't get itchy at all on my forehead, even if I wore it all day. The cashmere is so soft, beautiful. A lot of people say it matches all the colours in my beard. My friend Tina thinks my beard is grey, 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 rather than my appropriated hashtag of gay, 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 gay. So that's an FO, and my gift to everybody who wants to make that. A few people are making it. Danny from Little Bobbins, hello Danny if you're watching. I know you've started one, I hope you're getting on well with it. And there's already a couple of finished objects appearing on Ravelry, which is brilliant. Keep up the good work. It's a great stash buster. This was only about, I can't remember. Let me weigh it now. I've got my scales over here, and the scales are telling me that it weighs 62 grams. So it's you'll get plenty left over for other things from a 100-gram skein of sock yarn, and it really is great for showing off the striping. Trying to find the light that shows it off very well, but anyway. Hat, Invisi Crown, there you go. What else? Oh yes, before I get onto my whips, I've got this. I guess this is an FO. It's a small FO. I'm very, very, very excited about this tiny little swatch. And the reason I'm very excited about it is because of the bind off. Oh, I love the bind off on this one. I have been trying to find a way of doing this bind off for a very, very long time, and I finally worked it out. Let me come a little bit closer and I can show you. Here is the swatch. I just did a normal two-colour alternating long tail cast on here. So I'm trying to find the centre of the lens, there you go, which is that, and what it looks like. But here's the bind off, and this is why I'm so happy. This bind off is so beautiful, and it just sits right on the top of the knitting. It doesn't lean to one side or the other the way a lot of cast-offs can. It just sits on top beautifully and is completely and utterly reversible, except for the fact that, of course, the V's go that way. So, of course, on this side, they then go that way. I'd still call that really reversible. It's based on, look at it. Oh, it's just this beautiful little chain, and it's actually not too bad in terms of stretch. Could be a lot worse. It's based on a 3-needle bind off done on 2 needles. That makes sense. You don't actually need, with a 3-needle bind off, you'll have half of your stitches on one needle, half on a second needle, held parallel, and with the 3rd needle, there's going to be parallel stitches, with the 3rd needle you'll work into a stitch from the front and a stitch from the back together, and work those together, work the second one, and then pull the first stitch off the needle over the top. You don't, if your stitches are not on 2 parallel needles, but are instead alternating on the same needle like that, then it's perfectly possible to work a 3-needle bind off just from that one needle with one other needle, so you eliminate the need for the 3rd needle at all. Well, actually, you eliminate the need for the 2nd needle. The pedant in me feels duty-bound to clarify that. You're still working with the 3rd needle, that's the one that you do the thing with, but the 2nd needle is the one that the stitches will be on the back, and they don't need that one because they're both on the same needle, which is the 1st needle. So you're using the 1st needle and the 3rd needle, and it's the 2nd needle which is gone. Okay? Sorted. Don't ask me to say that again. I'm not Sheldon doing scissors, rock, paper, scissors, lizard, spot, whatever it's called. I wanted to be able to do it in a way that alternates, with the colours alternating. Focus. It's not gonna. With the colours alternating like that across the top. And it took me a little while to figure it out. And even when I did figure it out, I figured it out for one way and it was looking gorgeous. I was really pleased with it, and I turned it over and went, oh, it's not the same. So there's basically several stages to it. I will do a tutorial for this, but the reason I haven't yet is because at the moment I can't find a cast on that matches it. That might not be a problem. You might think, well, that's just nice enough. Focus. Hide my face. It's not going to do it. It's not going to focus. It's pretty, and you might think, well, I don't mind that. It's nice to have it on one end. I like a matched cast on and cast off. So if I were going to be doing this on a scarf, I'd want it to look the same on both ends. Of course, there is a way you can do that. You could always do a provisional cast on at the bottom, work all the way up to the top, work that cast off, then turn the piece over, unzip the provisional cast on, and then work the same bind off going the other way. So that would work, but that's a bit of a faff. It's already a little bit labour intensive, but I think it's absolutely worth it. It involves there's no real way of demonstrating it. I haven't got a swatch to show you, but I'll put this tutorial together. But essentially, you have to work it one way for the first lot of stitches, and then you have to do a little reversal and work in sort of a mirror version, and that keeps it alternating side to side as well as green to white across the top, and it makes it nice and reversible. What I had to work out how to do is, if you see I'll try and get this to focus here, underneath, let me get a needle so I can point at it. Underneath, where are we? I'm going to try and do this. Underneath this green stitch here, there's this green loop. Can you see that just there? Underneath that stitch is that green loop. And on the other side, underneath this white stitch here, so it's really hard to see there, but there's a white loop sitting underneath. Well, that is the top end of the white stitch from the other side. So it's important, because obviously you can't make stitches become the same place. If you're going through two stitches together, one is going to be on top of the other. So I've got, here's the two V's, one for the front and one for the back. Well, if I'm going to be working into them both at the same time, they're either going to be with the front one over the top or with the back one over the top. That's the only way it can work. So what I've had to make sure I do, so that this is nice and reversible, is that the one stitch goes that way and the next one goes that way, and the one that way and the next one that way, and you work along going like that. And then I found that I had, underneath a white V-stitch on the top, I had a green loop showing on the top, and it was causing little blips, so I had to work a way of reversing the colours. Anyway, it works. It's really nice. I'm very, very proud of it. One more little show. It's just, it's losing the focus. Gorgeous. Anyway, I love it, and I'm really, really happy with it. So I will be putting a tutorial about that. I spent a day working on this, and I spent almost as long working out how to try and do a cast on that matched. I didn't get there. I've lost a little swatch I had. I had a tiny weeny swatch, which had actually what I did work out how to do while trying to do this and failing, trying to find out the cast on and failing. I did work out a way of creating a cast on that matches what's the normal decayed bind off. So instead of these stitches, sort of the V's stacking up on each other like this, sort of that normally they come at angles like that, as you work one from the front, one from the back. And I did find a way of making a cast on that matches that exactly. It's a real shame. I've never actually liked that cast off. I always thought it looks a little bit scrappy. So what I've managed to do is design a cast on for a cast off that I'm never going to want to use anyway. However, I will probably make sure it goes out there so that you can at least match them entirely. And one day I'll figure out a way of doing that, even if it is just doing the provisional, as I said, and working it in the opposite direction at the end of the project. I love it, I have to say. This tiny little swatch, this tiny, tiny little swatch means the world to me. It's also very similar to that tattoo. You see, there you go. Can't point at myself on this reversed camera angle. It's not quite. Oh, I wasn't going to do it. Well, let's do it then. So what's that? This is called the Medicine Man's Eye, and it is a Native American symbol, and it means wise and watchful. As I've said in the past, all of the tattoos on my arm are in some way related to me or to things that I aspire to be. So I'm not suggesting for a moment that I am wise or watchful, but they are both qualities that I would like to assimilate into my personality a lot more than they currently are. And that is this week's What's That? That's short and sweet, wasn't it? So yeah, this makes me very happy. I shall keep it. I shall keep it for a very long time. I'm very happy with it. So, back on the crafting thing. That's not knitting. This here is a felted ball. This is Ben's felted ball. This is not Aloysius poo. Aloysius, I'm so sorry. That was totally uncalled for, highly inappropriate, and won't happen again. This is a little felted ball, felted by my dear husband Benjamin. You know this already, many of you, but we go to a monthly craft and cake session at our friends Julie and Sam's house. And Ben doesn't have a craft. He's the only person who's allowed to be there not having a craft. Sometimes his craft is sticking photographs into his albums. We've got like whole, I can't do it, it's on this side. This whole shelf here and the one above it, which you can't see, is full of photo albums, and that's his craft. So his mum bought him some roving and not really any instructions, but we found out how to make these felted balls. We were going to make loads of them and string them together into a necklace. This was as far as he got, ladies and gentlemen. One felted ball. He wasn't happy about it because it has some weird nipple on the back. It's really his parental guidance, this podcast, sorry about that. Yeah, he didn't like the fact that they have cracks in and don't... Basically, he hated doing it. He made about 3 and got in a bit of a tizzy and said, oh, I don't like it, I'm not doing this anymore. So he still doesn't have a craft. The quest continues. Hashtag the quest continues. Anyway, let's move on to whips. I am very, very excited about my whips. Oh, do you know what? Before I get on to whips, let's talk about stash enhancement, because I do have some stash enhancement. I got this lovely big bag of yarn, which you can see is pretty much empty. I ordered a kilogram of super bulky weight yarn from the Wool Warehouse. And you can see they sell all sorts of things online. Very good. The service is very good, and they've got their own little ribbon that comes with the bag. This wonderful mesh bag here, which would be great for keeping all sorts of woolly things in. I bought 10 balls of this, and it's Drops Andes. I spoke about it last time because I wanted to be casting on a jumper, about which more in a moment. But this is the yarn that I bought. It's the Drops Andes, and it is really, really lovely. It's 65% wool and 35% alpaca, super bulky weight in this lovely heathered mid-grey. I really like it. I like the fact that the way it's plied like rope, and it's got this kind of proper ropey, cabley effect on the plying. Gives it a really nice texture. I'm not hugely sensitive to wool. I don't think it's the softest wool in the world. Ben can't touch it, but then no surprise there. But I think this is quite nice. It's got that sort of a little bit of alpaca prickle, but I love working with alpaca, and I don't think the Peruvian wool is the softest in the world either. But the combination is really nice. It's really bouncy. It just feels very lovely. And it comes in these 100-gram balls, which is 96 meters or 105 yards. And I bought 10 of them, and they came in this one great big bag. In this other big bag, and that is my stash enhancement. That's it. I am rattling through these things today because I'm going to talk about the jumper which I have cast on in a moment. So in terms of, I haven't got any socks on the go, and that really upsets me, so it is time to cast on some more socks. I do, however, have a little bit more work done on my Il Burato scarf. Now this is the scarf that comes from the same book of patterns as this cowl. So these are sisters. And I've done a little bit more. I think I was sort of into the purple bit. I've done the blue and greeny, so greeny blue and yellow, and I've done the red and orange here as well. And we've seen the other side, how that's coming together very nicely. It hasn't had a great deal of love spent on it this session. Oh God, I do. Every time I look at it though, I look at this and I just think, why am I not knitting it all the time? God, I love it. I absolutely love it. I know I say that a lot, but it's absolutely true. This is one of the most beautiful scarves I've ever made. And I'm really, really pleased with it. I like this effect so much. I'm going to put a fringe on both ends. I've not put a fringe on any of my scarves before, so I'm going to, in all 4 colours, I'm going to put a fringe on both ends of this, and it's going to be great. So that's that one. It is coming together very nicely, and I thoroughly enjoy working on it. It's made with Travel Knitter yarn in 4 different colourways. It looks kind of complicated, but here are the colours, aren't they? Ooh. Ah! It's went miles. Ah, there you go. Aren't they beautiful? They work so well together as a unit. I really, really adore them. And it's the Travel Knitter yarn in BFL Super Sock. So it's 75% superwash British Blueface Leicester, which is great because you probably just short that in the washing machine. And 25% nylon, so it would be great for socks. I'm obviously not using it for socks, but would be. It's quite a healthy yardage. It's 425 meters per 100 grams. It says cool hand wash here, and it's hand dyed by my good friend Larissa, who is Travel Knitter. Focus. Focus, please. Oh, I can't be bothered. So there we are. That's that. And did I say this already? It looks quite complicated. It's only ever 2 colours at a time. Every section is only 2 colours as you work through. The combinations make it look very, very multicoloured, but it's really not at all. It is just 2 colours, standard double knitting. Really, really love it. So that's that. Whip one, the piano number 3, Lee said soonest mended. Moving on, the hexahap. Now you'll remember last time I was approaching the end of my green section. The hexahap, of course, by Tom of Holland comes from the Book of Haps by Kate Davis and Jen Arnold Culliford. All sorts of muck on the back of this book. I don't know where it's been. It's chocolate or something. It's not all over my actual hap. Doesn't smell of anything. But there's mucky stuff. There's all this brown stuff here. Let's look into that. And I was running out of yarn. Now, interestingly, the first triangle, this sort of beige mushroom colour, was knitted from a 100-gram ball of Barocco alpaca, and I was left with this at the end of it. Great. So I thought, it was a bit nerve-wracking, the first triangle, thinking, will I have enough? Yes, I had enough. The second brown triangle It's the same size as the first one in the pail, and the second one is sort of darker biscuit colour. And when I got to the end, I had this much yarn left. Now that really does match my beard. I had this much yarn left, so I thought, great, we're on to a winner. So I then started with confidence the next one, which is the green one. And I got very close to the end, or not that close to the end, and I was thinking, that ball of yarn is getting smaller and smaller. I don't think it's going to last. Do you know what? It didn't. I had 30 rows left of the green triangle. Beg pardon. Stop it now. And it ran out, like literally that much, and had 30 rows left to go. I mean, admittedly, like, you know, one row has 2 stitches, one row has 1 stitch, so, but still, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, bring it all down to 1, that's quite a lot of stitches left over, not to have any yarn left over compared with this. So I was really perplexed, and I haven't really got to the bottom of it. It's hard to know now whether the original 2 skeins of yarn were more than 100 grams, quite healthily more than 100 grams, which is why I had so much left over, or whether they do actually take up more than 100 grams per triangle, which means that if one is not quite so generous but is still 100 grams, I just won't have enough to do it with. So I had to bite the bullet, and I went back to Loop where I bought the wool from originally, and I had to spend another £12 or something on another ball of green. They had 1 left in stock in that colourway. And it's over here, and I have now finished the green one, and of course I've got that much left. So if I were to weigh that, I've still got 93 grams left. So it was more than 100 grams, so I haven't used very much. I'm just really annoyed because, of course, now I've started the next colour, which is this lovely, lovely blue, which is in the bag, which is here, and it looks really nice. Changes things on there because it was all very natural colours. This is sort of kind of sea blue. I really, really like it, I have to say. I still love everything about this pattern. You can see how the centre's going the wrong way. I might not do this again. I'm going the wrong way, and there you are. You can see all the swirl in the centre and the way the 4 colours are being beautifully bordered by the lacy outside panelling. It's all gorgeous, but of course now I'm panicking that this won't be enough either. And then I'll have to go and buy another one. It was already quite a lot of yarn. And I have to say, I'm a little bit cross, because if this is not the pattern's fault, don't get me wrong, it's not really. Well, it sort of is the yarn provider's fault, because there's clearly been some massive discrepancy between the size of the balls. Some people have said on Ravelry or Instagram, perhaps it's because my attention has changed because of the weight. As it gets bigger, is it dragging more and using up more yarn? Well, I can't imagine that it's sort of, I mean, this is like 7 grams left. And I ran out before I got to the end, so I can't imagine it's like 12 grams of tension different. Also, and people could say, oh yes, it happens. Having said that, I've knit this whole thing on my lap. So it's not really dragging, it's just sitting there on my lap. So the bigger it gets, there's just more of it on my lap. It's not. So I can't believe it's that. So it has to be the fact that there is substantially less yarn in the original green skein than, if not less than 100 grams, certainly less than the others, which of course panics me, because I just don't know. So I've got the other colours that I'm going to be numbers 5 and 6, so this lovely grey, which is kind of similar, not quite the same colour, but kind of similar to that, and this wonderful sort of beigey, greeny, olivey, not really showing up in this light, but it's really, really lovely, and will look utterly, utterly gorgeous mixed in with these colours. It is everything about it is beautiful. I mean, I could have stopped at 3 and bound it off and called it the half hexa, or the half hexa hat. And that there is methodology in the pattern for stopping at 3 or stopping at 4, which is the 2/3 hexa hat. And you know, it's big and it's lovely, and I'm just a bit stressed. I'm a bit stressed because I don't want to run out, and I've already paid about £130 for the yarn on this hat. It was quite an investment. I don't have that kind of money coming out of my ears. So if I then have to go and get, no, it's that side. If I then have to go and get some blue and some of the other 2 colours as well, just to finish it off, and be left with loads left over at the end, a little bit expensive, and nice to have this. I don't know what I'll do with it. Less than 100 grams of 3 colours of this, perhaps, potentially 4 colours maybe, I don't know. So we'll see. I got going quite well with the blue, as you can see, but I've sort of stopped because my other new cast on has taken, it's even off the needles. Sorry, my computer's dying. Even off the needles, I put some blockers on the end there to keep it from going. Only because I needed the needles for something else, not because it's languishing in any way. I'm very close to, well, I say very close, I'm quite close to the end of the new project, so I will very quickly be back to this because it's lovely teleknitting. Really, really nice. Well done, Tom, again. Not so well done, Morocco alpaca. That's all I have to say on that. I've got everything in a bit of a tangle. I'll sort that out after I finished. Now, having said last time that I had too many major projects on the go at the same time because of the piano number 3, because of the Il Barato scarf, and because of the hexa hat, what did I do? I went and cast on a garment. Now this is the Twilight Zone jumper by Dario Tubiana, who is Italian, and it looks like this here. There we go, there he is. That's Dario himself modelling it, I believe. Looking very handsome indeed, in a very, very fine jumper. And it's got this lovely pops of contrast colour around the ribbing and around the neck there. And I've never made a jumper before, and this one looks like a good bet for a first jumper because it's super bulky weight yarn. That's what this is for here. Super bulky weight yarn, so it's going to knit up nice and quickly, and it's untextured, it's just plain stocking stitch. So I thought, well, this would be a really good one for me to get to understand the structure. It's a top-down raglan jumper, so you cast on at the neck, work down and do the raglan increases, work the body, and then work the sleeves separately at the end. And I was really, really having a lot of fun doing it. I had got quite far quite quickly, and Dario has been brilliant, hello Dario if you're watching, has been brilliant at sort of giving me some feedback on, I had a couple of questions, some things I didn't understand, because I'm new to this, and I was asking his advice on sizing and things like that, because I wanted to know what size he had made and what his chest size was, so I could compare that with my own. Now my gauge is a little bit different from Dario's. Dario suggests that his gauge for that is 12 stitches per inch, per 4 inches. 12 stitches per inch with super bulky? I don't think so. And mine has actually been coming up about 13, so partly what I'm about to say I think is in relation to that, and partly is because I'm not Dario and we're different shapes and sizes. Anyway, I knit it, I did the yoke, divided here for the sleeves and the body, and I'd worked the whole body and done the ribbing and bound it off. And I put it on, and I was really unhappy, really unhappy. It just looked like a sack of potatoes on me. And I didn't know what to do, and I just thought, you know what, this is the jumper pattern for me, it really is, but I'm not that shape. So I made the decision, I'd knitted the whole body, I thought, well, do you know what, I could just carry on. But then no, it's never a good idea. If you think, oh, let me just carry on because of the work I put into it. No, I genuinely don't think that's ever a good idea. I think it's always, if you're not happy, to always rip back and start again. You put in so much love and attention into a knitted item. If you think of like the whole project as 100%, 100% of your time there. If you have to rip back and do this bit again, that bit that you rip back is only a fraction of the whole thing. Isn't it worth it after all that effort to get it right and not to be sitting there thinking, it's just going to sit in the drawer, I don't ever want to wear this, it looks terrible to me. So I ripped it back. Part of the problem was, although my stitch gauge is tighter than Dario's, my row gauge is the same. Now I've never really had to worry about row gauge before on anything I've made in the past. And I was working his increases for the yoke, and by the time I got to the right number of stitches for the body and the sleeves to divide, I think my yoke had just gone further than it should have done, and it was kind of down here, sort of in line with the bottom of my chest area here, rather than sort of up here in line with my armpits. So again, I didn't have any instincts to draw from, because I don't have any past experience of knitting this kind of garment, or any kind of garment for that matter. So I carried on. It was awful. It was awful. I went back, I took it back, I took the whole body back up to where I divided, and then I went back some rows again. Which meant, of course, I didn't have quite the same number of stitches because there were fewer increased rounds, which meant that I had to do some improvisation. So what I did is I looked at quite a lot of things online about top-down raglan jumpers. And I had learnt an enormous amount about the structure and how it worked. Things I didn't realise. For example, I knew that you pick up stitches, so you cast on extra stitches when you're doing the dividing under the arms. And I thought for some reason they were just at the body, and they wouldn't affect the sleeves. And I thought, but I got that completely wrong. Of course, for example, if you had 10 stitches cast on under the arms for the extra body, that's going to be 10 more stitches that you have to factor into the body stitch count. But also, you'll be picking up 10 stitches going the other way for the arms, for the sleeves. So that'll be another 10 stitches for that sleeve. And I've been working out my measurements on what was there rather than what will be there when I get to that point. So part of that was all my lack of knowledge, and partly it was those numbers aren't going to work for this body. So I took what I had learned from the first time through, and I took what I'd learned from doing other research online, and I've had to make the decision to go a little bit off-piste. So although it is absolutely very much still the Twilight Zone jumper, and I'm absolutely going to be using Dario's fantastic method of using a much thinner, lovely idea, much thinner contrast colour and knitting it together with that, so you don't get stripes, you get this lovely mottled effect. And I'm definitely going to be doing the stitching around the outside. It will look, to all intents and purposes, like a Twilight Zone jumper, and it absolutely is, because that's the design. However, the construction is kind of my own improvisation from now on, because I just needed it to fit me. So, let me show you how far I've gone. Here it is. I love it. I do love it. Dario, it is brilliant. Thank you so much. Dario, by the way, has put this pattern out for free, which is incredibly generous of him. It's a big, big item. And also a lot of work goes into designing a jumper, and it's on Ravelry as a free download. So thank you, I'm eternally grateful, and I'm going to absolutely adore it when it's finished. I have knit, that's curled up a little bit because I haven't finished the body off yet. What I've done is I've put that on waste yarn because I wasn't sure about the length. So what I want to do is I'm going to knit the sleeves, or at least one sleeve, and then try it on with the sleeve and the body together to see if I've got the right thing, because I've still got 12 rows to go. There's 4 of the colour and 8 with the ribbing, so another 12 rows to go, which will add another couple of inches onto the bottom of this. So I want to make sure that I don't have to rip any of that back, because it might be a bit too long. I may have gone too far. I deliberately did that, and I've put it on waste yarn, as you can see. waste blue yarn there, to save it for later, knit a sleeve, compare the two. I might take it back, I might continue. So that's why I've also got 2 balls of yarn still attached to it. Didn't want to break the yarn, so one of the yarn balls comes off the bottom here, and one is what I'm currently working on, which is this sleeve. Look at that, I've never knitted a sleeve before. It's my first ever sleeve. So I think probably the best thing for me to do now is to slip it on and show you what it looks like. Excuse me while I just free the beard. Boink. So, this is the one that matters, because this is where the sleeve is. So let me show you what I've got. If I kneel here. Oh, get in front of the camera would help. I'm now incredibly pleased with this. I'm really, really happy. Do you know what? I might get a little bit further away so you can see it. Look at that. It's a really, really nicely fitting jumper. This is the side. Oh, hang on. This is the side where I've got the sleeve. It really works very well. I'll come back and give you a bit more. Around the collar, you can't actually see much of the collar behind my beard, but it's a very, very high turtleneck. It feels really nice. I was a bit worried that this was going to be a little bit tight. I like it. It feels snug, but not strangling me in any way at all. I might stretch it out a little bit when I block it, but I don't think I'll need to really. Obviously, here's the lines of the raglan going down here, and this is the sleeve. I can't do anything left or right. This is the sleeve that I've got on waste yarn here, waiting for later after I divided. But what I'm most pleased about is the underarm section here. Look, there's no holes to speak of. That's just a little bit of shadowing. There's not actually a hole there. And even on the back there, really happy. I've picked up a few more stitches underneath than Dario's numbers suggested, partly because I needed a little bit of extra stitches because I'd taken the yoke back a little bit further, and partly because it sits so nicely. There we go. It really works. It really works it moves well. There's no constriction here. I am going to be so happy with this jumper. I cannot tell you how happy I'm going to be with it. I'm going to be obviously putting the contrast colour around here. Have I told you what contrast colour I'm using? It's that. I'm using that green as my contrast. Let me show you the two together. It's going to be really, really gorgeous. So I'm going to be knitting some of this in around the hem here and around the cuffs, and sewing it into the cast on around the neck. It's going to be really, really exciting. It's going to add a real pop of colour that Stephen West would be incredibly proud of. This, by the way, is John Dunballen's Deeply Wicked Key Lime colour that I knitted the piano number 2 scarf with. And I thought that's what was left over. It'd be going very nicely into this. So there's quite a lot of positive ease in the jumper, but it doesn't feel like it's too much of a bag. And I'm just really happy. That's just my cable because I'm doing Magic Loop. I'm really, really happy with it. Really very happy indeed. It was such a relief when I put this on. Ben suddenly went, "Oh my goodness, that's actually really flattering on you now. It's a very flattering shape rather than making me look like a bag of potatoes." And I think he's right. I like it. I like it enormously. It's really snuggly. It's going to be incredibly warm. I can't wait. The sleeve is knitting up quite quickly. Having never done a sleeve before, there's not very many stitches in it, to be honest. So I'm whizzing down it. I've only just recently started it, and I can't wait to see how it gets to here. I've worked out my maths for the decreases and how to space them out, and I worked it out including the extra stitches that I picked up here and back here. And the reason I did that was because I know that Dario says in the pattern that you might want to pick up an extra stitch in the corner there to stop it from getting a little hole, and if you do that, to then decrease them away on the next round. But then I thought, actually, do you know what? I need some extra stitches there because of the way I've done the yoke, but I also don't want it to suddenly go. So I picked up 2 stitches here and 2 stitches at the back, which is an extra 4, which is quite a lot when you're working at this gauge. So I factored that into my maths and made them part of my stitch count rather than trying to apologise for them. And I'm going to decrease those gradually and evenly as I get down to the cuff. So I've already done a couple of decreases, and also going a little bit off piste again, my decreases are actually not done adjacently. I'll show you. I love it. I really do like Captain Birdseye, don't I? So the decreases on the sleeve, most things that I have read people would put them on, obviously on the underside. Look at that. Excuse me while I comb my beard with my beard comb. There he goes. Much better. It's like the old joke, Mummy, what's a werewolf? Quiet dear, and comb your face. Who knew that would come true? So most people would put the decreases, so I'm told, you may correct me, next to each other, beginning and end of round. Well, I've actually put them 2 stitches apart. I don't know if you can see that on here. So I've got, running down the middle, almost like a raglan itself, I've got 2 stitches, and the decreases are not quite next to each other. And I think that just works for me. And the reason why I've done that is because I've found in the past, if you're putting a K2 together and an SSK together, you sometimes get a gap in between. I didn't want to risk getting a ladder down the underside of the sleeve, so I've just spaced them out a little bit. So I'm using a little bit of knitter's instinct, even though I don't have any experience of garment knitting. I'm enjoying this foray of discovery. I'm really enjoying the pattern. So Dario, again, thank you very much. Please don't be upset that I've had to go a little bit off piste. It's only because I'm a funny shape. It is still very much the Twilight Zone jumper, and I am going to wear it with pride. Oh, I do love it. Look at it, it's gorgeous. It weighs a ton. It does weigh a ton. It's going to be an incredibly warm and snuggly jumper that I cannot wait to finish. I was hoping, to be honest, part of me really wanted to get it finished for this podcast so that I could sort of go, oh, look, since the last time we spoke, I've knocked up a jumper. Because of my journey of discovery, that hasn't been the case, but I'm not far off. I think those sleeves are going to whip up in no time at all, and then I just need to finish the ribbing on the body, and job done. I will block it. I think it'll take forever to dry. Might be the only time it ever gets a wash. Oh, that's gross, isn't it? People don't wash jumpers very often. I certainly don't. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I've rambled on quite long enough. I'm really quite happy there's been a lot of knitting content in this. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you're still with me. And I hope you've had a good knitting week and enjoyed your time doing whatever it is you're doing with your crafty life. I'm going to sign off now. So I will say, as I always do, that while this podcast episode may be a finished object, remember, life is a work in progress. Just take it one stitch at a time. See you next time. Bye-bye.